One of the least researched topics is the relationship between your waking senses and your sleeping senses, your external physical senses and your internal mental senses. How come you can sense so well in dreams, remote viewing, OBs and NDs when your physical senses are not engaged? How come your mental senses can so accurately reproduce your physical senses, to the extent that you can't tell the difference while you're dreaming? Blind people can actually see in their dreams and OBs. Isn't that astounding? We do not need physical senses to carry out sensing. Intuition, which can harness our internal mental senses, could do it all. However, evolution must have concluded that external, physical sense organs are more reliable and keep us more grounded, and safer, hence why we have them. Our internal mental senses must access very similar brain circuitry to our external physical senses, but must collect their data non-locally, via the unconscious, and not locally, feeding into consciousness. Jung wrote, "In intuition a content presents itself whole and complete, without our being able to explain or discover how this content came into existence." Many mystics are overpowered by their intuitions exactly because of this distinctive whole and complete nature that intuitions often have. If you accept the intuition, you accept all of it. The trouble is that just as the physical senses can produce illusions and delusions, so can intuition. Intuition can be highly deceptive, especially when it is combined with feelings, as it so often is in religious and spiritual terms. It seems to provide epiphanies and enlightenment, but only in terms of ecstatic states of experience, but never states of knowledge. No religious prophet or guru has ever used intuition to explain the fundamental nature of reality in analytic, rational and logical terms. Philosophical intuition has proved far superior in this regard, but still not good enough. Only when intuition concerns mathematics is it spot on. Jung wrote, "Intuition is a kind of instinctive apprehension, no matter of what contents. Like sensation, it is an irrational function of perception. As with sensation, its contents have the character of being given, in contrast to the derived or produced character of thinking and feeling contents." Jung was highly intuitive, but not intuitive enough to grasp that concepts can be given just as much as percepts can. This is the whole point of the ontology of mathematics. We can intellectually perceive the ultimate basis of things, just as Plato asserted. We certainly don't physically perceive the forms. We don't derive or produce the supreme concepts, we discover them. They are eternal and necessary givens, as opposed to the temporal and contingent givens of the physical senses. Jung's psychological scheme unfortunately contained an unconscious empiricist bias. He could not accept that concepts are actually more real than percepts and are in fact their basis. Therefore, thinking, proceeding by way of reason and logic, and assisted by intellectual intuition, can allow us direct access to the foundational elements of reality. The physical senses are blind to this conceptual world, hence physical observation, as promoted by science, is the worst possible strategy for finding the answer to existence. Jung wrote, "Intuitive knowledge possesses an intrinsic certainty and conviction, which enabled Spinoza and Bergson to uphold the scientia intuitiva, intuitive knowledge, as the highest form of knowledge." Intuition shares this quality with sensation, whose certainty rests on its physical foundation. Science is extremely certain about physical sensing, and wholly dismissive of intuition. Intuition does not fit in any way into science's materialist and empiricist paradigm. It's Platonist, not scientific. Jung wrote, "The certainty of intuition rests equally on a definite state of psychic alertness of whose origin the subject is unconscious." Intuition reveals the astounding power of the unconscious. Intuition is the unconscious counterpart of sentience. It's so mysterious exactly because it's a function of the unconscious and can tap non-local reality and reach the essence of things beneath phenomenal appearance. Jung said, "That is what is called intuition, a sort of divination, a sort of miraculous faculty. It is a function by which you see round corners. Intuitives are drastically different from sensing types. All mediums, psychics, clairvoyants, shamans, healers, and the like, come from the tribe of intuitives. They are never sensing types. All scientists, on the other hand, are sensing types. No intuitive would ever find science satisfying. Ontological mathematicians are typically thinking intuitives, although some feeling intuitives can join the ranks. As a side note, INFJ is a potent personality type, because the INJ part serves to make it intellectual, while the F part makes it part of the feeling world, hence connected to most of the people in the world. With the INTJ personality type, by contrast, the INJ part delivers intellectualism, and so does the T part, which is why INTJs are regarded as masterminds, double intellectuals, but it's also why they struggle to relate to people. They don't have the emotional affinity with ordinary people that INFJs have. INFJs are intellectuals who can reach the masses. INTJs are those who construct amazing systems that more often than not never connect to the masses, because of the absence of emotional relatability. Sensing is closely tied to materialism and atheism. Intuition concerns idealism and spirituality. The basis of spirituality is animism, the idea that all things, animate and inanimate, possess a spirit, and can all connect to each other. People, animals, objects, geographic features, rocks, plants, trees, mountains, beaches, rivers, seas, the wind, the sun, the moon, time, space, all natural phenomena, are spiritually linked. The pagan religions were all based on a polytheistic animist worldview. Abrahamism, since it claims that God is everywhere, is a monotheistic animism. The sensing circuits in the brain oppose intuitive faculties and selectively inhibit them. The more sensory you are, the less intuitive you are, and vice versa. Scientists are highly sensory, and almost devoid of intuition. The world revealed by intuition is never addressed by science. In fact, it's regarded as delusion, unreality, fantasy. Intuition doesn't make any sense to scientists. It's the opposite of science. Step 1 of the scientific method is observe, with your physical senses. The first thing intuition does is dispense with the physical senses. Intuition is exactly that which proceeds in the absence of the sense organs, hence in the absence of science. It is therefore the paranormal, the supernatural, the metaphysical. The physical sense organs are all about the embodied human, the local human. Intuition concerns the disembodied human, the non-local human, the humanon of the mind rather than the body. Ontological mathematics can cater for both bodies and minds. Science can only accommodate bodies. If you accept the existence of paranormal phenomena, you cannot support scientific materialism, which explicitly excludes all such things from its paradigm and regards them all as religious and mystical nonsense and delusion. Out of sight, out of mind is something an empiricist, a physicalist, would say. It's just a different way of saying, nothing is in the intellect that was not first in the senses, as trumpeted by the likes of the extreme empiricist John Locke. Leibniz, a rationalist, said, nothing is in the intellect that was not first in the senses, except the intellect itself. And the intellect is where the innate universals reside. Outside the intellect is where material particulars are found. What empiricists, including all scientists, say is, it all starts with the physical senses. Therefore, there is no such thing as intuition, which is the opposite of physical sensing in that it doesn't use the physical senses at all. What rationalists say is, it all starts with the intellect, the mind. Minds can access other minds, and indeed the whole universe, which is in fact made of mind, without any reference at all to bodies and physical senses. That's why intuition is real, and why people can have out-of-body and near-death experiences, and transcendent DMT trips. Intuition contradicts materialism. Intuition can be regarded as the perceiving function of the mind, as opposed to the perceiving function of the body, the physical senses. It perceives non-locally rather than locally. Unlike the physical senses, it can perceive meaning, purpose, motivation, possibility. It operates unconsciously, meaning that we are never aware of its workings. We become aware of it only when it presents its results to consciousness. It never shows us its workings, only its results. It's like a student who hands in an exam paper with all the right answers, but no indication of how they arrived at them. Intuition is a superpower? The most intuitive people are the least sensory. We would go as far as to say that non-intuitives will never grasp ontological mathematics. Sensing types will always be fanatically drawn to science. After all, science begins with the physical senses. Ontological mathematics definitely doesn't. It begins with intuition, reason, and logic. All intellectual intuitives can instantly tune into the broad arguments of ontological mathematics. Sensing types never can. They are often repulsed by ontological mathematics and find it absurd. There are many weird science fanboys, not qualified scientists, but armchair amateurs who have read a few populist science books and watched a few populist science documentaries, who are driven into a frenzy of hate by ontological mathematics. It's quite the spectacle. They literally attack a subject of total rationalism, and claim to be rational while they are doing so. They are unable to comprehend that they are inherently repulsed by rationalism, and completely unconvinced by it. They are sensing types, not intellectuals. Only the senses persuade them. Seeing is believing for these people. They don't accept anything else. Their faith in the senses excludes everything else. Intuitives privilege non-sensory or extrasensory perception over sensory perception, hence are opposed to sensing types. Thinking types privilege concepts over percepts, hence are also opposed to sensing types. Thinking and intuition are essential to ontological mathematics. Sensing is essential to science. Scientists are never intellectuals. Sensing types never are. They are observers, not understanders. English physicist Brian Cox, a zealous hater of philosophy, is a typical sensing type and anti-intellectual. The science fanboys love Cox and always take his side against mathematical ontology. You will never find the likes of Cox and his American equivalent Neil deGrasse Tyson making any intellectual arguments. Whatever they say is always framed in sensory terms, even though reality existed before the senses did, hence its intelligibility and explanation, by definition, have no connection to the senses. To understand eternal and necessary existence, you must of course use the tools of the eternal and necessary, reason, logic and intellectual intuition. You would never use the temporal and contingent senses. Yet science has nowhere else to go, since its defining method, the core of its paradigm, is the use of the senses to observe the material world. The senses are privilege over everything else, over reason, logic, intuition, concepts, intellect, rationalism, intelligibility, explicability, analytic definition, coherence, completeness and consistency, the principle of sufficient reason, Occam's razor, and so on, so science can never get beyond its primitive sensory obsession. As a strange article of faith, scientists believe that limited, fallible, unreliable, delusional sense organs are the supreme tool for understanding reality, even though foundational reality has nothing at all to do with sense organs. It's a category error to imagine that something so irrational as the human senses can ever reveal the truth of existence. Wikipedia says, in 1657, Oliver Cromwell, the man who engineered the execution of England's King Charles I, was offered the crown by Parliament as part of a revised constitutional settlement, presenting him with a dilemma, since he had been instrumental in abolishing the monarchy. Cromwell agonized for 6 weeks over the offer. He was attracted by the prospect of stability it held out, but in a speech on the 13th of April 1657 he made clear that God's providence had spoken against the office of king. "I would not seek to set up that which Providence hath destroyed and laid in the dust, and I would not build Jericho again." Ontological mathematics is the kingslayer, the slayer of scientific materialism as the supposed standard-bearer of intellectualism, and will destroy and lay in the dust all manifestations of materialism. Scientific Jericho will never be built again. Its walls will soon fall down.